Chef Pachi.
Hi! Today with Chef Pachi, we're gonna make some muffins that are savory. And what we're trying to do is something that looks kind of like a bread for babies and toddlers that doesn't have any sugar. And I'm making them with some goat's cheese. So here we have a cup of goat cheese. This oat flour or oats that I processed in my food processor. So they're not as thin as the oat flour, but almost. And that's because I didn't have oat flour here. Some oats, and both the ones that I processed and these are old-fashioned oats, not necessarily the quick cooking. Then we have a little bit of corn flour and some chia seeds. The chia seeds are the only dry ingredient that's going to go in the wet ingredients. And that's because we want them to start blooming with the soy milk before we add the rest of the dry ingredients. Let me get this. So we're going to mix all our dry ingredients. Oh, there's something I forgot. Half a teaspoon of baking powder and a quarter teaspoon of baking soda. And then the vanilla will add, and then the vanilla will add with our liquid ingredients. So here comes our sweetener, that is applesauce. We don't want them to be very sweet, but we want a touch of sweetness. Our oil, that I used olive oil, but you can use the oil you prefer. And now our eggs. And last but not least, our vanilla. And we want our vanilla to be a good, and just a pinch of vanilla to give it, bring up all those flavors that we don't have in the sugar, and a pinch of salt too. So the vanilla is like drops, because this is a very, very good vanilla, and we don't want to sweeten them. We just want to put like 5 or 6 drops. So now we're going to mix our dry ingredients well, because then we're going to place them into the wet ingredients. And we want all that baking powder and baking soda and cheese, the flours to mix completely before we add them into the liquid ingredients, in case they don't mix too much. They don't need to mix a lot into the wet ingredients, but the dry ones have to be very well mixed before adding them to the wet ingredients. And here we have our wet ingredients. All we're doing is like breaking down the whites and the yolks. That's it. Now we're going to pour our dry ingredients here. And we're done. Now this goes into the muffin pans. And we are ready to bake them.
There is a master basic recipe for these muffins where you can make different kinds with the same basic ingredients.
We are going to bake them in this pan. You can make it in any kind of muffin pan. I like the little ones because we're going to give them to children so they can have smaller bite sizes. We don't want to give it, it's a huge difference, the volume of a big muffin and the volume of the small one. You can also use any spray oil or just do it with your spatula. Your spatula is going to help. Anyways, so you might as well do it with oil. I just want to make sure they come out beautifully for the video. And to remove the excess, because we don't want excess of that spray on our muffins. Let me put it in a baking pan. Necesito un molde. Now we're gonna bake them flat. I just needed a baking pan to keep them there while I bring a bigger pan. Now there's something I wanted to show you, and that is the difference between a small pan and a large, not even a large muffin, but a regular sized muffin that isn't large. So we can fit 1, 2, and 3. So it would be 2.5 because it's a little tall, but still there is a lot more fitting in a larger baking one than in a smaller one. That's why it's better to eat 2 small ones than 1 big one, because you'll be eating more than 2. Maybe 2.5, maybe 3. So let's go to the oven.
Check them out. They're beautiful, golden, and delicious. Chef Pachi!